Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Beat the Clock podcast. My name is Michelle Rubio-Garcia, and I am here to help you grow. Through the many timed interviews I'll be having, all guests will answer 4 time-specific questions. By answering these questions honestly, we hope to show you how each moment connects to the next. Whether they are entrepreneurs or thought leaders, all are invited to sit down, chat with me, and show you a realistic depiction of success. By doing so, we hope to change your mind and empower you to beat the clock. Hello and welcome to Beat the Clock. If you're here for the first time, you are coming in on a transition for the podcast, to be honest. In episode 12, I did go ahead and give an explanation of where the podcast is heading. And so if you didn't catch that, I am going to tell you right now in a couple of seconds. So episodes 1 through 12, I used to have 4 questions in each interview, and I would time it 45 minutes straight. 1 buzzer, and that was it. That didn't create the urgency that I wanted, though. So now, in episode 13 and on, I am going to have the interviews with the same 4 questions, but now I'm going to time each question. So 4 timers, kind of creating more of a hot seat sensation and adding some pressure to our interviewees. So that's the kind of pressure I want you to feel in your own lives, guys. And I'm not saying like dread life and, hate this kind of anticipation. I'm saying embrace it because we're limited, finite beings, guys. And if we act like we're invincible, we're going to waste so many years of our lives because we think we have it all together and we think we have all the time in the world. We don't. So Beat the Clock is here to remind you of that. And I need to create that feeling. So to be honest, this episode doesn't feel like my best work production-wise because of this transition. There are a couple of reasons for that. Number 1, I was so nervous before the interview. I don't think Simon knows how nervous I was. He's the guy I'll be talking to in this episode. I didn't even get to tell him how I interpret him, which I do that for every single guest. So that's how nervous I was. I broke script because I just wanted to jump in and play. So that. Number 2, there were a lot of internet issues in the Zoom interview that we had. I had, internet stoppages. We were lagging at some points in the interview. Then there were awkward pauses because we couldn't hear each other. And we were like, hey, that thing. And that's never happened before. So I don't know what the deal was, but I had to work really hard, guys. It was so difficult on this episode to edit everything out. It was also so difficult to cut the clips off because sometimes the quality dipped a lot. I don't know. It was really weird. And I hope you can be patient with me. I'm learning to be patient with myself. I would normally not put something like this out. I would be critical. I would be angry at myself. But I'm learning to embrace vulnerability. And if I want to model how to beat the clock, I'm telling you that you have to, not be afraid of failure. And if I have to publish this episode with all of its technical glitches and kind of mildly embarrass myself to show you an authentic journey, I will do that. Growth is not glamorous. Growth is not, you flip the switch and from one day to the next you're perfect. That's not real. And so I want to be real in this podcast. So I hope you can bear with me again. I'm sorry, but Simon's great. On the plus side, he actually took the time to listen to all my podcast episodes. I think we were on episode 6 or 7 at the time when we spoke. And then he gave me notes and we were talking about how to improve audio quality. He was just such a mentor / guidance for me. And he really confirmed some gut feelings I was having about the direction of this thing. So if I thank him 1,000 times on this podcast, I don't even care because I live in gratitude now. So I want to just let people know how much they mean to me and how he's going to really impact this project. So yes. Let's go ahead and keep one thing the same, which is to remain loyal to the BTC affirmations. So number 1, I trust myself. Take some time, maybe pause, kind of repeat it to yourself, and then come back to me. Number 2, my time is valuable. So breathe. Every breath that you're taking are a couple of moments passing by. That's how important it is. And number 3, I can control how I use my time today. So let go of who you were, powerless and maybe a little confused, and embrace who you could be, powerful and in total command of what you want. Um, this is a super extended intro. Sorry, but I just felt like I had to explain everything. And I feel like it's okay to talk a little bit because I even cut back the intro. It used to be a little over a minute long and I cut it in half. So tons of revisions on this episode. Trying to be more concise in every regard. And yeah, just trying to beat the clock, you know? So let's see what Simon has to say. I'm so happy to share him with you. And let's see if you like the changes in the feel of the podcast. And the clock starts now. So hello, everybody. This is Beat the Clock, episode 13. I am here with Simon Pellett. He is the creator and kind of visionary of the podcast Music on Your Own Terms. Hi, Simon.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm so excited that you're here with me. So thank you so much for making the time to chat after you already gave me so much time to kind of give me feedback.
Awesome. No problem. Thank you.
And so, yes, the reason that I'm bringing Simon on, everybody, is because he was the guy that I was mentioning in episode 12. In episode 12, I mentioned how I talked to several different people and how I just felt like I needed to kind of adapt the format. And Simon was a big part of that. And I just appreciate how he's willing to kind of, take the time to hear my content, to contemplate on the format and to hear me out.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm just one of those people that like to, I've kind of done the grassroots kind of bootstrapping of my podcast, and I've learned so much, and it's just one of those things I really like to not only pass on just because it's a cool thing to do, but I feel that teaching something actually cements and improves your knowledge of it. So happy to do it.
Yeah, and so guys, we're gonna try a different format for this episode and kind of thereafter. So we're going to time every single part. Believe it or not, we're already timing this intro. It's at 2.5 minutes. Every other guiding question that we typically use will be at 7.5. And then at the end, we're going to see how Simon fares and we're going to see if he beat the clock. So are you ready, Simon?
Yep, the pressure's on.
Okay, so let's jump into it. Alrighty. So question number 1, who were you before this season of your life? That's typically how people like to and now I'm blanking. People like to categorize their time by season. So before this season of your life, who were you?
So before this, I was a very, I'd say, comfortable but uninspired and unfulfilled person. So I worked for 18 years in an automotive materials company, so dashboards and interior materials, as a designer, and I did quite a lot of engineering and chemical engineering as well. Just wasn't the right fit for me, wasn't really happy doing that, and I was trying to improve my musicianship and being out and starting to do something with music. And I think prior to that, I've struggled with depression and anxiety for a long time. And I think in that period, a lot of it was getting over that mindset and trying to get out of that and find the ways I can improve my mental health. And through a very good friend, I discovered self-improvement books, Tony Robbins and financial stuff and entrepreneurship. And so the meeting of me learning about entrepreneurship and self-improvement met kind of this experience of being, in a band that was actually doing quite well, but hearing all these opinions that you can't make money through music because of streaming and things like that. And the two worlds collide. Like, I just want to teach musicians how to be successful at the business side, really, and change their mindset to you can do stuff. And my podcast is basically that, in helping with mental health as well. So I think in a nutshell, I was somebody that was kind of lost didn't really have a good life goal or any idea of where I was going. I was just kind of, I wouldn't even say I was comfortable, but I was kind of just not willing to get out of what I was doing. You know, whether it be because the money at that job was too good, or I mean, it was, you know, I just didn't have the drive to change my situation. Really, I think.
And would you say there was like one specific moment, like an aha moment where you realized that the fusion had happened, or was it something that just kind of gradually pushed you in that direction?
I mean, I would say just the number of conversations. It was kind of gradual, and I think one of those things is looking back at what I didn't necessarily kind of think about it at the time. I just did it. But now looking back at the beginning of the podcast and why I started it, I can say, well, that, you know, I can really look back and say, well, that contributed to that. This contributed to that. And I can kind of understand what the driving force was. But yeah, I unless there's a concrete goal that I can actually plan out and attain, generally, I do things where it's just kind of it feels like the right thing to do, and I push myself in that direction. I achieve it, and then I can really look back in retrospect and find out what I actually did that contributed to that.
Yeah, and I asked that question because I really kind of liked that. I sensed that from you, that it wasn't this crazy pivot from one direction to the other. And sometimes people think that that's what it has to be. Sometimes, like you're saying, hindsight is 20/20, and you just kind of follow that feeling or that gut sensation, and you kind of work it until it turns into something physical. And then you realize that it was there all along, and it was just kind of working its kinks out before it was birthed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's definitely things that made a huge difference or impact just because of their nature. But generally speaking, I think my life, even from being very young, is just small kinks that I've worked out over time, and you know, and it's the old thing of a compound interest, where you know the more you do, the better everything gets. You know, cumulatively, really.
And would you say that your struggles with mental health actually kind of helped with this too? Because I think when you kind of guide musicians in entrepreneurship, you're going to avoid all of that imposter syndrome, that doubt, that depression, that maybe the career is not kind of propelling itself the way it should. Like, does that really inform your thinking, or is that just a natural byproduct of it?
I mean, partly a byproduct. I mean, I think no matter how severe or you know, minute a problem or an experience is, it's going to inform your life later on regardless. There's really nothing you can do that doesn't. I mean, I think the reason I concentrate on mental health personally is just because because of the experience I had, you know, while I was suffering at the worst times, created a lot of empathy, and I just want to help people that way. But yeah, I mean, you know, and that's the thing. You touched on a really good point that, you know, not everyone has clinical depression that's that bad, but imposter syndrome and feeling bad about something that you've done or haven't been able to do is still real. Everyone's pain is valid, no matter where it lands on the scale. So
Right. And that's something that I was very aware of when I was watching this thing. I think the guy's called Iron Cowboy or something like that. So it's a documentary about this guy that does 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 cities or something like that, like crazy stuff. Yeah.
yep.
And then at the end, he was saying, you know, what is hard for me and what is hard for you may be different, but both are hard. Like, just because you're comparing yourself to me and I'm doing all this crazy stuff doesn't mean that yours is not equally as draining, as depressing, as whatever. So yeah, I like that you touched on that too and elaborated on it, because it's kind of just saying that, you know, comparison is the thief of joy. And by really taking the time to just acknowledge your pain and not grade it by a rubric, I think you can really kind of begin to hear yourself.
For sure.
So, question number two, who are you now in this season of your life with music on your own terms? How do you feel now? Do you still have those struggles with mental health sometimes, or are they minimized? Where do you see this going? I mean, any way you want to interpret that question, you
Sure.
can go ahead and speak into that.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, to touch on the first point, yes, I still struggle from mental health. I've definitely looked into medication. I was a staunch non. I did not want to take any type of medications for the longest time. I'm working through therapists. I discovered that, and I should point out as well, I also got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So the medication I'm on both helps with fibromyalgia, pain, and depression, and um, and yeah, that's keeping my mood on an even keel. I've tried to come off it a couple of times, and it ended badly. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things. I don't like taking medications, but it also, if I don't, all bets are off. So yeah, like right now, I mean, I'm going through life as is. My fibro pain is manageable. Last year it was awful, so I've improved there. But I think just keeping on this podcast, I've gone from doing it whenever I had time to having a dedicated schedule once a week, and then I think I've done a couple of Friday episodes here and there. Um, I think that drives me to keep talking to people. Um, the whole setup of the podcast, I think subconsciously was me trying to get out of my element and talk to people, because had a lot of social anxiety, didn't like to meet new people, had found difficulty striking up a conversation, except for somebody with a guitar in their hands. That would be easy, but
Mm-hmm.
just finding people, connecting with people. I've met quite a number of people that I've stayed in touch with, and in some cases become close friends with. It's vastly improved my circle of influence and just social circle. Even though that's right now, so that's online only really because of COVID. But
Mm-hmm.
in some ways that's a good thing, because it breaks down that barrier of the in-person anxiety. Um, but yeah, I mean, my whole deal is music. I work for a screen printing company that does merch for musicians. So everything I do now is revolving around music, which is awesome. Um, and I think the fact that I built the podcast to where it is, and I want to take it further. I think the drive to actually get that weekly episode out week to week is really pushing me, and keeps me kind of grounded in a way. Because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have this deadline. Um, it would just be I'd be floating around like, oh, I might as well do this now. But now I have that deadline. I have to do it, so I have to find time. Um, and I want to bring that into music as well. And I've started writing again. I have a ton of ideas. Not to go off topic, but I have a ton of ideas floating around on different hard drives here and there. But actually sitting down, working on it for a couple of hours, and really pushing myself to maybe release some music, work on music for other people, contribute. Um, I just see that that's my kind of personal thing, and I feel that music does help, you know, people in general to get over what they're going through, as an emotion. But me writing music is really more about me getting my own feelings out, whereas things like the podcast is helping others. Um, and to extend that, I mean, I'd really like to maybe set something up where I'm helping artists get through their promotional stuff and form their business. Um, maybe something. I mean, there's so much up in the air that I could do. It's just finding the time to actually do it. I mean, like podcasters, maybe I could help, or have been helping, yourself and a couple of other people start their podcast, but maybe some kind of, I don't know, some kind of network that helps facilitate advertising on each other's podcasts. Um, and like I said, I mental health is big. I don't want to get too political, but I feel that promoting mental health services and people improving their emotional IQ would be extremely healthy for society as a general rule to improve everyone's empathy for everyone else. So that's that's one thing I'd like to get involved in.
Cool. And you brought up so many points. I just want to kind of summarize them real quick. So I think number one, people think that when you get a diagnosis or an unanticipated circumstance, right, that they give up right away and they think, yep, that's it. And that is a problem, or I guess kind of the nail on the coffin. But for you, it's actually fueled you into a more creative space. So that's something to consider. I also like that you mentioned that you went into podcasting even though you were more of an introvert. So that's a really interesting phenomenon to kind of be aware of, because that's really reassuring for somebody, right? Maybe an introvert does want to do something like this, but then they think that there's no way that they'll be able to conquer that. And you're a living testament to the fact that you can improve or your social skills and lessen your social anxiety. That's really, really cool. I didn't know that about you. Number three, I think that you also mentioned how, you can do something for yourself and you can still help others, because I mean, it was serving you, this podcast space, but it was ultimately informing entrepreneurs / musicians. And finally, I just think it's really nice, Simon, that like you mentioned how everything that your life is about revolves around music. And even if it's not necessarily being a musician, you're still in the music space. So I think people limit themselves in that regard too. I like, for example, I didn't think that I would be in the dance world the way I was in my life, and I went back in through coaching. So there's always a way around it. And I just really think that that's fantastic that you brought up all those points. Anything else you want to say? You have about 20 seconds.
20 seconds? That's pressure. No, I don't think so. I can't think that quickly.
Okay, cool. So the third question is, who will you be, right? So right now you're very much into the music space, and your empathy informs your awareness of mental health. You mentioned a little bit, hinted at politics. So where do you see yourself going?
You know what? I don't tend to look too far into the future, just because I know, I would class myself as somebody who used to be a big dreamer. Not that I don't, and I definitely kind of pay attention to things that could happen, but I don't tend to like to make too solid, grandiose plans, just because I'm kind of experimenting with what I'm doing right now. I mean, ideally, you're gonna have goals and plans. I mean, I can see myself moving from Texas to somewhere by the ocean. I'm definitely a big, I don't like going to the beach much, but being by the ocean, I was born, the south coast of England. So I grew up very close to the sea. So I find myself just on a subconscious level to be very at peace by by the ocean. So I don't know.
I'm the same way.
That would work.
And I didn't even grow up near the water. I could see myself again being by the water, but I don't like sand. Get away from me. I mean, I hate that, but yeah, I can understand that.
Just as there's more, I can answer as far as what I'd like to do, and that's continue the podcast to help people and really inform people. Maybe that transfers into some kind of training thing. But yeah, just improve music and maybe be able to make a living through different areas and contribute to a lot of different albums and write my own music and kind of leave some kind of legacy. But yeah, as politics, I've always been someone that avoids politics at all costs. But as we see right now, I think that anyone with that kind of mindset really needs to think about what their inaction is going to mean for somebody else. So again, mental health is probably a big area that I think I can contribute to in some way just by pushing the fact that we all need to improve our emotional intelligence, and just be there for different, not turn a blind eye to stuff and actually speak out on things. Make sure I go vote, even if it's, something that's not quite as good as what's there, or make sure that the slightly worse thing is out and the slightly better thing is there, and then concentrate on more local stuff, I think. But ultimately, I just hope that whatever I do, it encourages people to better themselves. So I just like to, regardless of what it is that I do, I just hope people see me as a leader in terms of what I'm doing, because you don't change people's minds by opinion. You change people's minds by what you do and the example you set. So
I totally agree. And I really like that you're mentioning, how inaction can even be detrimental to people, because inaction is really a form of action, right? You're consciously choosing to sit on the sidelines and kind of point fingers and just let things roll out. And you are basically surrendering your power, right? If you don't participate, then you can't complain about what's going on. It's a good point to mention. And yeah, I don't normally get political in this podcast, but I think that's a very, very important point to make as we near election season and as we kind of consider where the country's going, because yeah, like you're saying, we got to pick the lesser of two evils, so to speak. And we have to, there was this thing that I read, and I don't like to even support him, but it was a good point. So Jeff Bezos said that the way that he gets to make decisions is by doing them quickly. And so in order to do them quickly, you have to have at least 70% of the information available to you. And from there, just go with it. Sometimes we wait for the whole picture, but he said just quickly, and he called it disagree and commit. So, okay, not all of us are on the same page, or we're not sure that this is the right thing, but we're going to go for it anyways, and we're going to commit to that. And then by doing that, and just, again, forcing yourself into action, you can really start to see where you need to go, but it's just a matter of taking that first step.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, then great, then stop and reevaluate and do the thing that does work. But that's the whole thing about failure being extremely important to improving, because if you don't fail, you don't know where you can fix stuff.
Right. And if you're just, again, being inactive and just kind of watching everything transpire around you, you're not learning. You're just, absorbing and consuming, when all the real people that leave legacies like you're aiming for are people of action. So that's a good point to make. Absolutely. And so I also really like that you mentioned that you don't have a set plan, and I'm becoming comfortable with that too. I mean, if you were to talk to me even just last year, I was that person that, had a deadline, 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 15-year plan. And while I have them now and it's kind of, slowly forming, they're a lot more fuzzy. And I think that the people that are the healthiest, honestly, are comfortable with that, because the people that tend to hold on to their ideas of plans are really kind of, not naive, but who really has control, right? So it's just kind of about being willing to see where the ride takes you.
Absolutely. And to that point, I think that, for me, maybe there are definitely people who are very driven and they know exactly what they want right out of, the womb. But I'm one of those people that just doesn't have that long-term vision. And I think whenever I made these big plans that revolved around money, or me being able to do something and not have to worry about, fibromyalgia pain, depression, any of that stuff, and I didn't attain it, then I get really depressed about it. So for me, just part of being mindful of my mental health is make short-term goals that are attainable, have something in mind, but and have a general idea of where I want to go, but don't make these massive plans that kind of, if I don't make them, I'm going to get disheartened, and I ran out of time.
It's okay. And that's true. You have to be aware of yourself, and you have to know that maybe, that kind of long-term thinking will, again, have the opposite effect that you're intending. So that's totally okay. You only missed one. So let's go into the final one.
Sure.
And the final question that we like to have here is a direct call to action or advice given to our listeners. So what would you tell BTC listeners as kind of a little golden nugget of truth so that they can avoid clocking out on their dreams?
Be mindful and don't get complacent. I think that if you're going through the motions and you're just living day to day by habit, then you're not learning and you're not improving. I think as a tangent, one of the biggest frustrations for myself, I feel I'm pretty intelligent, and I try not to say that with any type of elitism, but the fact that I have with my health, and I find it very difficult to get myself motivated to work out and improve my health, but it's because my low level nervous system is so tuned to all that, and that low level stuff is controlling my intelligence in some way. So I think it behooves us to kind of really fight our conditioning and our just our natural tendencies, and really fight those and create new ones that push us in the right direction. I guess that's my little golden nugget.
Yeah, and I think that's totally true because, again, it's always comfortable to just rely on your laurels or your strengths, but even your strengths can be improved. Even your weaknesses, they can become strengths if you work at them enough. And again, I just don't think that people sometimes want to put in that work and put in that kind of reflection, right? Nobody wants to admit they got a lot to work on, but if you actually address it, it will get better, and you won't always have to hide from that. So I think that's a really good point. So if people want to get a hold of you, or if people want to listen to the podcast, where can they do that?
They can put a bat signal into the sky. No, I'm just kidding. So the podcast is musiconyourownterms.com. Mm-hmm. It lives on Podbean, but you can get it from any podcast platform you like to use. If there's any you don't find it, let me know and I'll try and get it on there. I think I've hit pretty much all of them, but new ones pop up all the time, so who knows. Facebook / Music on Your Own Terms, Instagram's Music on Your Own Terms, and you can get in touch with me that way.
And something that I think is really cool, so if any musicians are listening, something that you like to do at the end of your podcast, you want to talk about that, Simon?
Yeah, so I do interview a lot of musicians, and then sometimes, like such as yourself, I don't. It's not a musician that I'm interviewing, so I always put a song at the end. So every episode, with the exception of one or two, I just released 72 this week as recording this. Has a song. So I'll either, if there's somebody that doesn't, have music of their own, or they don't have a friend that they'd like to shout out. I've got a bunch of friends with music, so I'll put my friends' music on there as well. But yeah, I just like that. And honestly, that was the reason why I wanted to do a podcast in the first place. The original podcast I did was, I had so many new discoveries with music. I just wanted to get it out there and be like not so much an influencer, but just, hey guys, this is what I like to listen to, and I found this really cool thing, and I wanted to put that in a podcast. I could just never find the right format, and then I decided to change into the Music on Your Own Terms podcast, and I'm able to interview people and get the music out at the same time.
Yeah, but I don't really frequent music podcasts, but I really thought that was a cool little thing at the end, because I was listening to some entrepreneurship episodes that you recommended to kind of prep for our interview.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I was surprised in the first episode. I think in the one that I listened to and liked the most, it was music that you guys made when you were like 15.
Yeah, me and Alan.
Yeah. And I thought that was also super cool, because I don't want to like throw your age out there into the world, but
Okay.
to really go back that far and hear yourself, that was like, I wonder what it felt like. That's what I was thinking. So, and that's really cool that, again, you give space like that. I don't know that a lot of music podcasts do that.
Right. I mean, that's the whole point of the podcast is music. So if I can get, if the very least you get out of my podcast is a new band you follow, that's really cool. But yeah, the funny story with that music. So Alan, so that's episode. Alan was initially the reason and the person that got me into self improvement and entrepreneurship. But we went on a trip in it. They were him and his wife were studying in Arizona one year, and we went on a road trip from Arizona to. We ended up in Vegas. We hit the Grand Canyon and stuff, but we played the entire 90-minute cassette from school, like on the road trip, and we were like, yeah, our wife's in the back seat just looking, what did we marry? So
that's really cool. And again, music kind of brings back that nostalgia and that unity and maybe that confusion from your partners, but it's all just about feeling, and it's just about being in the moment. Music has an unmatched way to kind of make us be collectively present, and so I really like that you're doing that. Again, I wish I could play something that would be a game changer. Get me on a violin, that would be cool, or get me on a guitar and I change the world in that way, but unfortunately I don't have the time yet for that, but that's okay. So yeah, Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And we have about 30 seconds. So any final note you just want to give to everybody before we wrap it up and reflect on how you did?
I think what I say at the end of every episode is keep pushing the needle and be excellent to each other.
I love that. So yeah, let's see how you did. In this new format of Beat the Clock, we kind of time every single question now. And Simon, out of the 4 questions, you got 3 that were beating the clock, and then when the clock beat you in 1. So really, I mean, yeah, you had that one, but you beat the clock. So congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you.
And how was that experience? And even for me, as the host of this, I was so used to just going 45 minutes straight. So it was different for me. How was it for you?
It put a little pressure on me, which caused me to kind of freeze up a little bit. And again, that's something I put on myself for when I'm interviewing people. I sometimes have brain farts, which I just edit out, so you won't hear them. But I guess it's just a learning experience where I have to kind of put myself under a little more pressure to, just to be able to speak more eloquently without so many mistakes. We'll see, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it's a really cool format.
I liked it too. I mean, even for me that I think I like speaking a lot, I felt like I had to wrap it up faster and I couldn't like digress as much. I just wanted to be more concise. So it was a good experience. So I just want to personally on air thank you for giving me feedback. I don't know that many people that would take that time, especially considering we just met over a Facebook group. But yeah, I really appreciate your time then and today. And I wish you all the best, Simon.
Thank you. Yeah. Same to you. Continued success.
Thank you. And so, yeah, we're clocking out here, but don't you clock out in your own life. Thank you, guys.